Dragon SpaceX on Big Loop, you have used approximately 1/3 of your prop test budget.
And Dragon copies 1/3 of the prop test budget.
So the Corps letting the crew know how much prop they've worked through. Still have 2/3 of their budget left to do test maneuvers. And of course, any bit of propellant that they're using is just a little bit less margin if they needed to use it for something else. But a good way to exercise the system, see that manual piloting works as intended, and I'm sure for them to have a chance to provide some feedback on how manual piloting actually felt in space and how the control felt.
Yeah, a big part of their job for this mission is really to not only put the vehicle through its paces, but to take a lot of detailed notes and mental notes that they're going to be passing along to any future crew members flying on board Crew Dragon. As we've talked about, the simulators have been a pretty good guide for how the actual manual piloting goes, but things like the ascent up to orbit were quite a bit different from what they expected, and so they're just taking all of that in, internalizing it, and a big part of their job once they come home is to pass that along to all of our upcoming crews, one of which is targeted to launch just about a month after they come home. That Crew 1 outfit of 3 NASA astronauts, Victor Glover, Mike Hopkins, and Shannon Walker, and a Japanese astronaut, Soichi Noguchi, will be aiming to do that flight a little bit later this year. So going through the paces right now, looking at our data, I think I made the same mistake you did, where I assumed them going up would be the y-axis. It looks like that was actually their z-axis, and the y now them moving to the right. So we're seeing some small shifts. They're continuing to use up a little bit of their prop budget. We heard they're already a little past 1/3.
Yeah, it's actually something interesting about both aircraft and rockets. When you consider the coordinate system, what we refer to as the x-axis is usually the one that goes through the nose. So in the case of Falcon 9 and Dragon sitting on top of each other, the x-axis would have been pointing through the nose cone going up. Can be a little bit counterintuitive. And then actually in aircraft, the z-axis usually points down, depending on whether you use European or American coordinate systems and the type of aircraft you're working on. But important for both Space Station and Dragon to be on the same coordinate system as they do this eventually as they step into the approach maneuvers here towards waypoint 2. Dragon will be using its relative navigation sensors, again for relative position to the station, to make sure that it's on the approach within the bounds of the approach corridor going towards the station when we get to that after this manual piloting test.
We should be getting to that shortly. This manual piloting test was slated to last about 25 minutes. As we have been running ahead of schedule today with all of Dragon's maneuvers, we could be looking at a docking only about 25 or 30 minutes from now. So once they're done with this manual flight test, they'll turn control back over to Dragon's flight computers, and they'll resume their approach, which had actually already started automatically before the crew issued a hold command to the vehicle, and then they'll press in to arrive at waypoint number 2, at which point the teams will do a final go-no-go for docking. They'll depart that 20-meter hold point, and it should be just about 5 minutes following that departure until we get contact and captured.
Yeah, and the crew right now are seated in Dragon in the pilot and commander's seat. Both of them are suited for what are relatively dynamic maneuvers, and they'll continue to be suited until we have confirmation of good hard capture on the space station. So right now, just interfacing with the touchscreen displays, testing out manual piloting. Hopefully secretly a little bit giddy to be piloting a spacecraft.
I mean, before they had launched, Bob Behnken had referred to this mission as every astronaut's dream, getting to launch in a new spacecraft, putting it through its paces. He and Doug Hurley, with those test pilot backgrounds, testing out a new spacecraft has to be as good as it gets. But they're still stepping through this manual piloting. We should have just a few more minutes until they're done with this Y-axis translation. And then they'll be able to turn command back over to Dragon, which will return itself to the docking axis, and then begin that approach into waypoint 2.
Yeah, and as a look ahead, so when we do transition into that approach, Dragon will autonomously go towards waypoint 2, which is just 20 meters away from the forward international docking adapter on node 2. And it'll hold there. That'll give the ground team some time, both in Houston and at here in Hawthorne, to do a go-no-go poll, make sure that the vehicle still looks healthy, make sure that everyone on board the space station and of course on board Dragon.
SpaceX Dragon, we've completed with the translation maneuvers. We're going to pick up with the closure maneuver.
We copy. We're following along with you.